Of the unclassified 4 pages that Washington, D.C. has been on edge over for the last few days. Now, essentially, it has a lot of information in it. Among that information, we find out that Christopher Steele, the author of the infamous Steele dossier, was a longtime FBI source. Furthermore, we find out that the Deputy Attorney General, Bruce Orr, that his wife was directly employed by Fusion GPS to do research on behalf of the Clinton campaign and find negative information about Trump. Furthermore, we find out that this Orr individual, this Deputy Attorney General, interviewed the author of the Steele dossier, Christopher Steele. So, among the information, we also have information about Carter Page and how the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act was used to surveil Carter Page and his activities. This is someone associated with the Trump campaign. And basically, we're seeing what can be interpreted from this document is that the FBI and the Department of Justice, the entities that are essentially supposed to be enforcing the laws of the United States, that they were acting in a partisan way against the current president of the United States, Donald Trump, during the campaign. They seem to be colluding with the Clinton campaign in order to prevent Trump from being elected. That's what many people are seeing in this document. That's what the facts stated here are leading many to conclude.
Yeah, there were major doubts whether this memo would be released at all. There were many people, many organizations trying to stop it from actually being made public.
Yes, Nancy Pelosi actually said that releasing the document would be a threat to national security. This is what Nancy Pelosi said about these 4 pages that have just been released.
The intelligence community is vast. It's the CIA, the DNI, the National Defense. Everybody has their element of it, and sources and methods must be protected.
Furthermore, we heard all kinds of, bringing of Russia into the conversation. The Kremlin was brought up. There were calls, for Twitter and Facebook, a letter sent to them by the Democrats, essentially asking that they investigate the role of Russian bots. We even heard it go as far as accusations against Devin Nunes, the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, alleging basically that he was a Russian agent. Let's take a listen to how Russia was brought in to this whole controversy.
Is it possible that the Republican chairman of the House Intel Committee has been compromised by the Russians? Is it possible that they actually have a Russian agent running the House Intel Committee on the Republican side?
I hope that's not the case.
Doesn't his behavior speak of that, though? I mean, I'm not the first person who's raised this. He's behaving like someone who's been compromised.
Now, the 4 pages seem to indicate that apparently the Department of Justice and the FBI, which are supposed to be not following a political agenda, simply enforcing the laws of the United States, may have been engaged in rather partisan political conduct. Now, we're waiting for different reactions to come in, but all eyes are on Washington, D.C. as the 4 pages have been released, and the memo is now public.
Caleb Maupin for that on the release, finally, of that memo. Thank you very much. We'll have some guests later in the programme as well giving us their take on that. Abuse has been released and includes testimony from a high-ranking government official who says without the infamous Trump dossier, the FBI, the Department of Justice in the United States, would not have secured surveillance warrants to spy on at least one member of the Trump team. Donald Trump gave his okay to have that memo released. The House Intelligence Committee then released it within the past hour or so. Let's get into some of the details now. Charles Ortel, private investor and writer, has been just glancing over it. You haven't had very long to take a look at it, Charles, but so far, what do you make of the memo? What's the key revelations here as you see it?
Well, as an American citizen, I am outraged by what I read here, and I would caution the world, your viewers and the world at large, this is just a 4-page summary of events that have been going on wherein an inspector general that sits on top of our Justice Department, Mr. Horowitz, has been studying the whole sweep of events leading, I believe, beginning before the primaries in 2015, then 2016, and afterwards, to determine whether there has been miscarriage of justice involving the Department of Justice and the FBI, which reports into the Department of Justice. Now, what this memo says, based in simple terms, is that on October 21st, 2016, scant weeks before Election Day, numerous parties got together, and I would argue, and I'm not a lawyer, but reading this memo, they perpetrated a fraud on our court to obtain the rights to surveil American citizens. And, you know, that is just outrageous behavior. To think that multiple parties in our government would perpetrate a fraud against a court to go way over the line and surveil an active president, members of an active presidential campaign. That in and of itself, without considering the bias, that is just outrageous. And anybody who is actually involved with this needs to be, cease employment forthwith, needs to be the subject of a vigorous prosecution, and needs to be made an example of. But that's just the starting point. I said October 21st, 2016. In truth, what the mainstream media has been trying to bury, and it's available in the public domain on the FBI vault, is that there was an investigation commenced by the FBI on July 10th, 2015, not 2016, 2015, into Hillary Clinton's mishandling of classified information. And publicly available sources on the FBI vault will show anybody who wants to look that by February of 2016, so that's what, 9 months, or sorry, it's 8 months before this warrant was sworn out, the State Department concluded that Hillary Clinton had sent out 2,115 emails that mishandled classified information. They knew that in February of 2016. And some of the names, a number of the names in this memo, were, while they were looking at Trump, were not doing the job that they should have been doing against Hillary Clinton. So it's not simply the side we want to look at here that this is a miscarriage of justice. It is a miscarriage against Trump, and they also gave Hillary Clinton and their team a pass. Outrageous.
The overriding question, Charles, in the build-up to whether this memo would be released was, does it show the FBI and the Justice Department were biased against the Trump campaign? Your take?
Absolutely, yes. Well, just what I see here in these 4 pages, and remember, there's pages and pages and pages behind it. But from what I see here and from what I know of the record at large, absolutely yes. In the tank for Hillary Clinton, in the tank against Trump.
What do you think the consequences of this is going to be?
Well, I've been calling publicly for months now for multiple firings inside the Department of Justice and the FBI. In my mind, and I'm not a lawyer, you know, here we have, if this is true, if this memo is proven true and verified, what this means to me is that anything that was obtained out of these illegal search warrants before the FISA court, any evidence that was obtained there that's subsequently been used against Flynn or Manafort or possibly against the Trump, all that is poisoned. And, you know, it really calls into question for me, how could Mueller have, you know, gone through the motions for so long if he knew about what was in this memo? It's just outrageous.
Well, that is one of the central points, isn't it? The impact of the investigations into allegations of collusion between Trump and Moscow. What happens with that now, with all this in mind?
Well, I mean, I would have to say, I mean, if this is true, then your government has been very patient with us, because you would have had to know, elements of your government would have had to know that all of this was just garbage. And if your members of your government have been being patient, well, thank you on behalf of this American citizen. I think it is time to, you know, put aside this Russian collusion delusion narrative and get back to the important business of, we have some house cleaning to do inside our country in the FBI, Department of Justice, likely the IRS and elsewhere. But on matters of, you know, Russian and American joint interests, we need to go back to the table with a fresh team and a fresh set of eyes and a fresh set of perspectives and get this relationship back on track. I mean, this is just outrageous. I'm sure there will be other developments through today and the weekend and afterwards. Perhaps the Democrats will try to spin a slightly different perspective. Perhaps Mueller will now do something even more aggressive against the president. So, you know, this is not the last sentence on the subject. But what I see here really, I don't generally get irritated, and particularly not on television, but I am extremely irritated.
Charles Ortel, private investor and writer. Charles, thanks for coming on at short notice. We haven't had very long with that memo, so we do appreciate your take on that. Moving on. At
points in Calais. Just take a look behind me and you'll see a group of migrants who've come here to receive food, to receive clothing and other items. And it's at one of these distribution points that the clashes broke out on Thursday. Hundreds of migrants armed with iron bars, with sticks, and even a gun, fighting over what was on offer. Now, we understand that more than 20 people were injured in that bout of violence, which erupted over numerous parts of Calais, including 5 who were injured from the shooting and 4 of those teenagers said to be critically injured. This is the latest round of violence in Calais, and the French Interior Minister has described it as reaching new levels.
I came to Calais because what happened here is extremely serious. We have reached a degree of violence not known until today. The government will propose a bill in the coming weeks to try and help asylum and immigration problems.
Well, violence between groups of migrants is nothing new in Calais, but this is the worst that it has been in many months. And people here in Calais say they're just fed up of the situation.
I think we need a structure put in place to protect us. There's a lot of delinquency here. Vehicles get damaged. Every day we have issues. Young girls can't go out alone at night.
It's a catastrophe for the French, and especially for the people of Calais. The violence is really damaging. Residents of Calais have lived in fear for several years now. Living together with migrants is complicated. Those coming here now are a bit different from the refugees who were coming here initially. They are more violent and aggressive. We are vigilant.
People are still being shot. It's still dangerous. And it's true that people who live near these areas are constantly being disturbed. It makes the city look bad.
It is starting to get scary. Firearms. We're not in the United States here. This is still